Hilchas Bias Hamikdash Perek Shvi. Now we learned that there are two types of mum. There's a mum which the same mum is sai by a adam and sai by a behema. And there are certain mummen which are only for an adam called a mum, and by a behema that's not called a mum. And the difference is both of them, it's usher for a bal mum that has this any of these mummen to be Eved Avidos, and if he does the Aved, he gets Malkus. But the difference is if it's a mum, which is a mum sai by adam, sai by behema, besides the fact that it's an Isser and he gets Malkus, the Aved is possible. If a person has a mum, which is only a mum for an adam, but for a behema it wouldn't be a mum, so even though you're not allowed to do the Aveda, and if you do the Aveda you get Malkus, but on the other hand, it doesn't passel the Aveda. Now the Rambam is going to recognize that there are 50 mummen, which those mummen are mummen sai by adam, sai by behema, and therefore if a person has any of these mummen, so then if he does the Aveda is possible. Perek Shvi. Kol ha-mummen ha-poislim ba'adam ube-behema chamishim. V'zeu pratim. There are 50 mummen where ha-poisl ba'adam ube-behema. Chamishim be'oizen. There are 5 mummen in the oizen. Ve'eluheim. Mi shenivgam schus oznei. So there's the schus of the oizen, there's the ear. So there's the outer part of the ear, which is the soft part of the ear, which like the flappy part of the ear that can bend over. Then there's the inner part of the ear, which is a harder part of the ear. That inner part of the ear, that's called the schus of the oizen. That like comes straight out of the ear. That's the closer to the ear. It's outside the ear, but it's the hard part which is closer to the ear, as opposed to the outer part, which is the soft part. That's what he's saying. And if that part, the inner part of the ear, what we know is it's obviously outside the ear, but it's very close to the ear. And that inner part, which is called the schus of the oizen, so that was chipped. So then Misha Nivgam schus oznei, there's a pgam in the schus of the oizen, kidei shetarget, that the pgam is big enough that shetarget siberin b'pgam, that when a person would take his fingernail and it would go over it, so his fingernail would be stopped because of that chip, because there was this nick, and therefore it's just like when you get a sakin of shchita. We also learned that if the fingernail goes over it and it stops, so that's big enough of a nick to passel the sakin of shchita. Aldera's over here, benigea the tziperin, if the tziperin goes over the schus of the eisen, and it would be stopped by this pgam, by this nivgam, so that's considered a mum. Nachamol misha nivgam schus oznei, that the schus of the eisen is the inner part, in other words, of the ear that we see on the outside, the inner part of that ear, which is the harder part, which is right outside of the ear itself. That the tziperin would be stopped with that nick, so that's considered a mum. But the skin which is around the schus eisen, which means the soft part of the ear, that we know the soft part around the ear that bends, is ein bein mum, that's not a mum. Bein nik or bein nizdak, even if there was a crack on that part of the ear, or if there was a hole in that part of the ear, so that's not a problem. The problem is only if there's a hole, if there's a pgam in the schus of the eisen, if there's a nick on that part of the ear, which is called the schus eisen, which is the inner part, the harder part of the ear. Halachi gimel. Now, besides the fact that it's nivgam schus eisen, there's another case. Mishanizdak schus oznei b'kolshu. If the schus of the eisen was cracked, there's nothing missing, but since the schus of the eisen is cracked, that's another mum. That's a second mum. A third mum is mishanikav schus oznei kikashina. There's a hole in the schus of the eisen. In this part of the ear, there's a hole, kikashina, the size of a kashina, which is a certain type of bean neck of ogel, whether it's a round hole, and then a kashina would go through it, or neck of arav, it's a longer hole. If you take the entire hole and together, you'll make it one. You'll make it into one round hole. If you'll take the size of the hole, which is really long, you'll make it into a round hole. So then it'll be the size of a kashina. So that's also considered a mum. Is harez a mum. So we have already 3 mumim. The nivgam aschus, and then there's nizdak aschus, and also there's a nekev in the schus. A 4th mum is mishi yovsha oznei, kedei shetinokev v'leitetzi dam. The oizen became dried out, that there's no blood in it. So therefore, if you're going to make a hole into ear, so then there's not going to be any blood coming from it. That's also a mum. And a 5th mum is Misha Hoya Ozne Kfula L'Shtayim. A person has like an ear which is really made into two ears. There's two ears. Afilo Hagdi Shederech Oznav Lias Neitzis Kfulas. The Agdi, normally his ears are flappy and they're bent over, but nevertheless, but it's only one ear. It's one ear which is flapped over. That's not considered a mum. Over here, if we're talking about a person has an ear, two ears. He has two ears, so to speak. He has two ears coming out of his ear. He has an ear which is a double ear. But if he has a double ear, so that's a mum. We're talking about that there's two separate schusim. In other words, it's not like there's a flap on the ear. In other words, a schus is the part of the ear which really directly over the hole which goes into the ear. And he has these two schusim. Two of these ears are coming out of his ear. If there's only one schus, it's just one ear that's like doubled over. In other words, he has an ear which is one schus coming out, which is the ear. And just that the outer part of the ear is like doubled over, and therefore it's like two layers to the ear, but there's only one ear, so then that's kosher. Is nachamal. So there's five mumen in the oizen. The five is you have nivgam haschus, or you have nizdak haschus, or there's a hole in the schus, or you have that the ear became dried out to the extent where there's no blood coming if you make a hole in it. Or a fifth thing is that you have two ears. You have to actually have two ears. Halacha dalet. Shloisha beris shel ayin. There's three in the eyelid. Ve'eluhein. Mi shenikev ris mirisi eina bekolshu. There's a hole in the eyelid. In the eyelid, there's a hole. A second thing is mi shenizdik ris mirisi eina bekolshu. There's a crack. The eyelid is cracked. There's not a hole, but it's cracked. There's nothing missing, but it's a cracked. And then a third one, Misha Nivgam Ris Mirisi Einov Bikolshu. Again, there is a nick on the Risi Einov. So these are the three things. There's a hole, there's a crack, or there's a nick, or there's a blemish that comes out, there's something missing. So then that's also considered a mum. That's considered a mum. These are the three mum. And these three mumen which are going on the risi einav on the eyelids is bechlal chorutz ha'amar b'teira. This is included in the word chorutz, which is a problem with the eyelids. Hey, then the shmei. So we have already 5 in the ear and 3 in the eyelids. Halacha hey, shmeina ba'ayin. There are 8 in the eye. So we learned there were 5 in the ear and 3 in the eyelid. Now we're saying 8 in the actual eye. Ve'eluhein ha'iver. Bein be'echad mi'einav, bein mishteim. The Pashtaich of even means he's blind, either in one of the eyes or in both eyes. Now Tesa says in Pecheres that Iver means that he's actually missing an eye. He's actually missing the eye. I'm not sure that's the Rambam brings, that's the Pshat in the Rambam, but not so clear, because the Rambam says, Iver bein be'echad mi'einav, bein mishteim. Knows the Pashtaich of Iver means he's blind. Then the second one is Misha Ein Reya B'Shtei Einav B'Achas Mem. He cannot see. Afal Pisha Ein Nira B'Em Shinu Klal. You can't see anything about the eye. There's nothing different about the eye. Machma Shiyardu Mayim Kvuyim K'neged Reisav. There's constantly liquid coming out of his eyes, and Memele he's never able to see. So that's also a mum. Even though he actually bats him, the eye could see, but he can't see because there's always Mayim. Water is watering, the eyes are constantly watering, and as a result of that, he can't see. That's a second mum. So the first one was that he's blind, or he's missing an eye, or he's actually blind, we're not sure of the pshat. And the second one is that he's be'etzim, the eye could see, you can't even see any difference on the eye. But lapel, there's constantly water coming down his eyes, mele he cannot see. The third thing is, Misha'ena reya be'ena ve'ba'achas me'am, riya brura, machma shahaya be'am sanvedim kvuyim. Because he can't see clearly. The Rambam says in Pirush Mishnayos, it's a certain nerves that causes that he shouldn't be able to see clearly. You know, in our word, l'chora would mean someone that needs glasses. That would also be considered a mum. Fourth, mi she be'enei k'mei einov, aval pi shehureya. He has like something growing in his eye, like a little einov is a little grape, so to speak, a grape type of piece. that even though he sees, but that's also considered a mum. Fifth, Misha Yotza Basar Yeser Be'enei Achechipa Ma'at Min HaShachar Shebayin, that there's a little extra flesh that's going over his eye. It covered over part of the pupil of his eye. Misha Yotza Basar Yeser Be'enei Achechipa Ma'at Min HaShachar Shebayin. There's something growing over the pupil of his eye. Or another 6, Misha Nimshach HaLevin Shalayin V'nichnas Mimenu Ba'ad B'Shachar Ad Shenimtza HaShachar Mu'urav B'Lovin. The white part of the eye, the eye has the white part of the eye and the pupil of the eye. So part of the white part of the eye extends into the pupil of the eye. And that V'hu Tivalul Ha'am B'Teidah, that's what Tivalul is. Aval Fakertim Yotzim Min HaShachar L'Techa Lovan Eini Mum. Because Ein Mumim B'Lovin, there's no mumin about the white part of the eye. Masha'inkin, if the white part of the eye is going into the black part of the eye, that's considered a mum. And then another mum, Misha Hoysa Nekuda Levana B'Techa Shachar. There was a white dot in the black, in the pupil of the eye. V'zeu dak ha'omer b'teiro, abevahu shetiyet sofa al gabi ha'shachar. In other words, it's floating over the black part of the eye. Avam le'hoysa sofa, but if it wasn't sofa, eisha hoysa mushukaz b'shachar, or it was actually, it was lower, it was engraved, so to speak, in the shachar. It was like lower than the shachar, is enimum. So if it was the same size of the nose, if it looked at the same height as the shachar, there was like a white dot in the black, or it's even lower, it's like indented into the shachar, so that's not a problem. The problem is only if the white is floating over the shachar. So we had before, if there was the white going across into the shachar, or that's going like from the white around the shachar into the shachar, and then there is a white that's in the shachar, not coming from the white around the shachar, going into the shachar, but there's a white inside the shachar. So it depends. If it's floating on the pupil of the eye, so then it's a mum. But if it's not floating, if it's just like, it looks like straight, it looks flush together with the pupil of the eye, there's just part of it is white and part of it is black, or if the white is even, so to speak, lower than the black, looks lower than the black, so then it's also a mum. If there was a black dot in the white, I feel it's sofa, even if it's floating, ein mum, because she'ein mumin beloved. There's no concept of mumin beloved. Now, if there's a black dot that's, so to speak, in going lower into the black, is avzen nikra dak. That's also called dak, and that's also considered a mum. Avalum hoyset sofa is over here is fakert. Avalum hoyset sofa hail v'ishcheda b'shachar ein mum. So white when it's sofa on top of black, so that's a problem. Black being sofa al gabi black is not a problem. Fakert black, that's shekas in black, that would be a problem. So again, so it comes out to be that there is 8 mumen in the eye. There's a mum in the eye. The first mum was iver. So we said iver normally means blind. Either he's missing the eye or he can't see, and it's obvious that he can't see. And then there is a metzias that a person that be'etzim he would be able to see. The reason why he cannot see is because there's constantly liquid coming out of his eye. As a result of that, there's mayim kvuim kneged re'esav. So that's also considered a mum. That's the second mum. Then there's a metzias of a person, a third mum, a person that cannot see properly with his eyes because of a certain nerve problem. His nerves are causing him not to be able to see properly with his eyes. So that was considered, again, a third problem. Then there's that he has a growth within his eye, like a grape, something growing in his eye, even though he's able to see properly, but lapel, there's growth in his eye, that's a fourth mum. Then there's someone that the Rambam says, Yotza Basar Yeser Be'enei Achechipa Ma'at Min HaShachar Shalayin. So the English Rambam I see translated means a cataract. It's not so clear. Misha Yotza Basar Yeser Be'enei Achechipa Ma'at Min HaShachar Shalayin, that is covering part of the pupil. So that's considered also, that's a fifth mum. And then someone that the loiven is extending into the shachar, and that's considered, that's the tivalul, which says in the Torah, that's a sixth. Masha'enkin, if the shachar is going to the loven, that's not a problem. So that was the sixth. Then there's a seventh, which is the Nekuda Levana in the ayin, which is not that it's floating over the ayin. There's a Nekuda Levana on the black. That's the Daka Amr B'Teira, but it's only if the white is floating over the black. The white is floating over the black. If the white is submerged in the black, that's not considered a mum. But if the white is floating over the black, then it is a mum. And then there was the eighth mum, where the black is floating over the black, over this faket. If the black was submerged in the black, if the black was submerged in the black, then that's considered a mum. But over here, if the black is floating over the black, that's not considered. Since it's black and black, it's not a mum. So white over black is fakert. If it's floating, it's a mum. If it's submerged, it's not a mum. And black over black, if it's floating, it's not a mum. And if it's submerged, it is a mum. That's the 8 that's in the ayin. So we had already 5 in the oizen. We had 3 in the eyelids, which was 8. And now we have another 8, which is 16. Now the Ram continues, halacha vav shleisha b'choitim. There are 3 in the nose. Ve'eluhein misha nikav chotmei. If his nose, there's a hole in his nose. Afilu mitzad echad. Even one side of his nose. The nose. There's 2 nostrils, and there's a separation in between the 2 nostrils. So, and there's a nose that goes over both nostrils. So, on either side, if there's a hole in the nose, that's considered a mum. A second thing, mishanizdak chotmei. There's a crack in his nose. And then mishanivgam chotmei, there's a blemish, there's a nick in his nose, that there's something missing of his nose, to the extent where it'll be the tziperin will if it'll go over it'll be stopped. So that's considered nivgam, and mele, that's 3 in the nose. Those we have already 21. Now shisha bepeh, there are 6 mumin in the mouth. Again, these are all mumin which are mumin saiba adam saiba abehim. Shisha bepeh ve'eluhein. Mi shenikav svasi. There's a hole in his lip. Afilu achas mem. Even one of his lips. If one of his lips have a hole in it, that's a mum. Also, mi shenivgam svasi. If there's a bgam, if there's a nick in his lip, to the extent where the lip, if you put your finger over the lip, it'll be caught. That's the second one. Mi shenizdak svasi. His lip is cracked. V'hu shenizdak mizer shelo at sheticholek l'shnei roshim. In other words, the top of the lip. The top of the lip is cut, is cracked to the extent where now it looks like it's coming out as 2 heads. It's not like a small crack. It's a crack that goes inside the lip, and mele, the lip is coming out as two separate parts. And then there's misha etzem lechia atachten oidef al ha'elyon kolshu. Notice if the bottom lower jaw is sticking out more than the upper jaw. So that again, that's considered if the part of the face, the jaw in the front of the face is sticking out more than the one on top. So then that's considered a mum. Or misha piv nivlam machmas gufe priyose. His face and his mouth is blown up, but it's not blown up in those just a temporary thing. Something happened in those. There's some type of an illness. It's talking about that the person. That's the way the behemoth or the adam goes. That his mouth is blown up. Nivla machmas gufe priyose. It's something which is part of his makeup. Nivla machmas aruach. There's something happened, or he caught a cold or whatever, and as a result of that, he's blown up. That's not considered a mum. Any mum. And another one is mi shenital reiv hamidaber sholisheni. The part of the tongue which causes him to talk. There's the part of the tongue which is obviously separated from the throat. In other words, the part of the tongue that's hanging out, and most of that tongue is missing. That's also considered a mum. So that's the 6 bepeh. There are the 6 in the peh, which is nikav svasei, nivgama svasei, nizdaka svasei. It's either a pgam, or it was a hole, or it was a crack. And this crack, it says it's cracked, that the svasi was like cracked into 2 sides. And then that part of the jaw extends, the bottom part of the face extends, of the jaw extends more than the upper part. And then there's that the mouth is blown up, it's something which is part of its makeup. It's not a temporary thing. This is a regular thing in the body. and also someone that's missing most of his tongue. Halachaches. Now there's also Shneim Esrei, so we have already 6 bepeh, so altogether I think we have 27. We have 27 already. Now Shneim Oser be'Evri Hazera, there's 12 in the Evri Hazera, ve'eluhein. Misha Nimach Hagid Shalei, ein Nichsas. Now Nimach means crushed, and Nichsas means smashed. In other words, in Madregas, there's crushed, and there's smashed. So there's, in other words, Nichsas is more than Nimach. Nimach is just crushed, and Nichsas is more than crushed. By Nitak means severed, it was cut. His aver was cut, but it's still attached. In other words, it's still partially attached, but it's cut. A Nichras means it was completely cut, it was completely detached from the body. That's B'Negeya, the Gid itself, the actual aver. Then there's Misha Nimuchwa Beitzim Shalei. So again, it means it was crushed, the Beitzim were crushed. Oy Achas Mem, or either both or one. A Nichsasu, or they were smashed, and it was more than crushed, smashed. Oy Achas Mem. Oy Nitku, again, they were severed, they were cut, but they're not completely detached. Oy Achas Mem, or one of them. In other words, whichever, in other words, the one that was either both of them or one of them, but they were severed, but on the other they weren't completely detached. A nichrasu, a achas mem, or they were both or one of them were completely cut. So again, so we're talking about there's the gid and there's the beitzim. So in the gid gufa there could be either nimach or nichsas or nitake nichras. And by the beitzim also, but again the beitzim is not together. There should be both. It could be even one. Again, there's also these 4 options: either nimach or nichsas, or nitak or nichras. So that's already 8. Then misha ein li al beitza achas. B'chatchila he only has 1 beitza. Is afal pi sheyesh li shnei kisim. So that's also a mum. And then there's misha shtei beitzav b'kis echad, that both beitzav are in 1 kiss. That's also a mum. So that's already 10. And then there's hatumtum, someone that's a tumtum, or someone that's an adreginus. So that's 12. So that's the Shnei Moser be'Evri Hazer. So that we have already 39. Then there's Shisha b'Yadayim v'Raglayim. In the Yadayim v'Raglayim there are 6. Ve'elu hein apiseach, someone that limps. Umisha nishmati yireche, or his hip was moved, it was completely displaced. His hip was displaced from his body. And v'hu, and that's Sarua ha'amar b'teira, that his hip was displaced. And then a third thing is Misha Achaz Miarchesov Gevea Michaverta. He has one of his hips start on a higher part of his body than the other hip. In other words, they're not even. Normally the hips, both sides, start from in the same place in the body. This person or this animal, the hips are not starting from the same place in the body. That's already 3. And then there's Misha Nishbar Etzim Yodi V'Husha Nikir. So that's again etzem yad, the hand is broken, or misha nishbar etzem rakle, or his foot is broken, the bone of his foot is broken, v'hu she'yeh nicker, only in the case that it's obvious that it was broken. Aval b'shein nicker she'emet, he could be standing straight and he won't be able to notice that his foot is broken. Abral nicker she'yahalach, if it's nicker, when he starts walking, is ariz mum, that's also called a mum. So that's already a 5th. Yodeh and ragle. And then there's another one, Misha Ragle Mivulam Ismach Masatzme Briyosim. You have someone that his legs are blown up, because that's the way it is. It's blown up in an irregular way. So again, if it's a temporary problem that the person has as a result of the ruach means a wind, I'm not sure exactly what the tzir is, but it knows there was something that happened, and as a result of that it's blown up, but that's not a natural thing. So that's not considered a mum. So that's again Shisha b'Yadayim v'Raglayim. So that was added to the 39. So now we have 45. Halacha Yud. Arba ruyin liyis b'chalagu ve'eluhein. Mishi yesh b'gorav yavish. Someone that has a dry, gorav is like a type of boil, but it's a dry boil. Mishi yesh b'gorav yavish kolshu, no matter what size it is. V'zeu hagorav amar b'teira. That's what gorav means in the Teira. The Teira says gorav, it means this gorav yavish. Or Misha Yeshba Yabelis, She Yeshba Etzim, someone has a Yabelis, a type of growth, But in the growth there's a bone. V'zeu Yabelus Amur B'Teira. Yabelus is talking about a growth with a bone. And then there's Mishi Yeshbi Chazozis Mitzis. It's also a type of boil, which is a Mitzis Dike Chazozis, Kolshu. And V'hi Chazozis Kosho Chur. It's a very difficult and very not pretty Chazozis. V'zui Yalefes Amur B'Teira. So that's called Yalefes. So that's we had the Gorav, Yovesh, and the Yabeles, and the Chazozis Mitzis, which is the Yalefes Amur B'Teira. And then he says, Kol Etzem, Shebegoli Shenechritz B'Charitz, any etzem which is you could see, in other words, an etzem which you could see, which has an indentation in it, Nechritz B'Charitz, there's a charitz in it, there was an indentation in it, is Harei Zamum, B'hu Bechlal Chorutz, Amura B'Teira. That goes into the gather of Chorutz, which is Amura B'Teira, Ve'inatzlois Bechlal Atzomish B'Goli. The ribs aren't part of the Atzomish B'Goli, but that's Etzem Shb'Goli Shnechutz B'Charitz. That's also considered a mum v'hu bechlal chorutz, and so that's the arba, which is ruyis liyis b'chol haguf, the god of Yavish, and the Abelis, and the Alefes, the Chazazis Mitzis, that's which is called the Alefes Amur B'Teira, and then we have this Etzem Shebegolish Nechritz B'Charitz, which is called chorutz. So that's the other four. So we have till now 47 mumen. Let's go over the cheshbon again. We had 5 in the Oizen, that was 5. And then in the Risa Ayin, there were another 3, so that's 8. And there was 8 Ba'ayin, so that's 16. And then we had Shleisha B'Chetim, so that's 19. And then there was Shisha B'Peh, so that was 25. And then there was Shnei Ma'aser B'Evrei Azera, so that's 37. And then there was another Shisha B'Yadayim V'Raglayim, that's 43. And then the Rambam started in Halacha Yud, the Rabba, Ru'uy and Liyas B'chol HaGuf, and the Rambam mentions 4, which are Shaykhis B'chol HaGuf. That's the Gorav and the Abelis and the Alefes, and also the Chorutz. So that's 47. And now the Rambam in Halacha Yud Bey speaks about another 3. V'oid yesham shleisha mumen acherim, ve'eloheim. First of all, there's Hazokin, shehigia liyesroisis v'royed kshu emet. There's he shuckles when he stands, he can't stand straight. Unachoyle, also kshuhureid mepnei cholye v'kishin kechi. So that's another one. There's a Zakin is one, and a choyle is another one. Avala treifa, but treifa you can't say is something which is shave ba'adam or behema, because kosher ba'adam, adam which is a treifa is not a psul to be a kain. A kain could be a treifa and still be a oived avidos al zakuna. Possible by behema. A treifa can't be brought as a carbon. By behema is possible. Aber for a kain is kosher. V'chein yetzadefen is kosher ba'adam. He's also an adam that's an yetzadefen that's a kain is kosher. Upasul behema. By behema, a behema has to be a behema that was nailat. There was a nailat. A mashaying that wasn't nailat, it can't be used as a behema. So that's another 2. So that's the 2 was the zaken and the chayla. Halacha yud gimel hamizuin. Someone that's a mizuam is also pasul. Now he's also pasul. A mizuim, someone that has a zuam, or coming from Messiah Adam, Messiah behema is pasul. Now the koyin shu mizuim bizeyasei. Someone that's mezuim because of his zeya, it starts with hamizuim. Someone that's a mezuim. Someone that's a mezuim, if there's no eitzim for the ziyum, so it's a psul, it's a mum. Now, a koyin shu mezuim b'ziyasa, so there's a eitzah, reichitz, v'shav kol gufi b'beisim v'evid. Now, since the problem is the zeya, so Mele he washes himself, and he smears himself with beisim, Mele is able to do the aveda. Hoyer reach piv ra is also the eichet eitzah. Nation bepiv pilpul is angvel, something that takes away a bad smell, v'evet. V'im avad bezium zeyosei, a bezium piv, or someone that's a mezuim, and that's not going to be an eitzah, like the Ram starts off ha-mezuim, is arichil lavidosei kishar elo abalimum eskulam, so that's the 3rd. So that melos, with these 3, so it comes out 50 mumim, which is shaveh ba'adam u'bebehim.